I was shocked. I mean, the more I got involved, like everybody has a little bit, but the more you read, it's just like, it's
The
amazing.
sad part, I mean, the civil rights movement, and then you have, when you have the suffrage movement, or something on king, it's like slavery. It's terrible.
And it's, you know, for women, it's part of, you know, African American men, they got the right to vote, and then when they fought the Civil War, they got the right to vote, they went, sorry guys, we're gonna take it and go. And I don't blame them, really. It was hard.
She said, sure.
But we're all good now. We're taking our turn. We all just waiting for Ryan. When she walks in, we'll just rise in applause.
All right.
I paid $20,000 a year to attend 2 meetings a month, and she can't make it on time.
Looks like the weather's breaking, Sue. It's
I
starting
think
to get warmer, it's
so.
supposed to be sunny to 50 today.
Yay.
Something to be positive about, bright,
Absolutely. We're
sunshine,
very excited about that.
some vitamin C, E.
I think that's why we're not trying. It's just like nice to get out of bed and yay. And had a board meeting last night, got out, it was still light outside.
Yeah.
It's like,
I miss daylight savings time, I don't get it.
I didn't either.
It's very
I guess
common.
they're, trying to, I think there's a bill in the Senate, in Chester Orphan's office, but I think they're gonna try to pass it. Because they say they're supposed to, children, I mean, it's pitch dark when those kids go to
I don't understand that. It's like we're just putting, my granddaughter is, she gets to her school bus at 7:15 in the morning.
I know.
It is pitch dark. And then they're sending to the school at 7:15 in the morning.
Which is
Really?
insane in my
7:15
opinion.
in the morning?
Yeah, I know,
Kids don't learn
exactly.
at
She said,
I don't learn at 7:15.
No,
I'm
adults,
still drinking
children,
coffee.
No, the Gates Foundation said the kids shouldn't start until 10:30.
I mean,
First
I
hour.
wasn't done drinking coffee.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good day.
Hello. Good morning, Chairman.
I would like to call the Montgomery County Board of Elections meeting to order this March 12, 2019. May we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 5th, 2019 board meeting?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the minutes from the March 5th, 2019 board meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. Our next item up is a motion to certify candidates for the May 7th, 2019 primary or special election, and I call on Director Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. As you said, next on the agenda is the motion to certify candidates for the May 7th special primary election, and before you, we had Mr. David Israedi, who submitted 563 signatures on Friday, in line with the filing deadline for the city of Dayton, which is 60 days before the election, and the number of valid signatures on that petition packet was 489. He needed 500, and therefore did not meet the threshold requirements of 500, and I will pass that packet down to the board members for review.
How many signatures were submitted?
563, and there were 74 that were not valid.
Define not valid, please.
I would like to have a response from the, our county attorneys on what you have received on, these ballots.
Well, I think for purposes of the record, let's go ahead and put some information on the record here that we're talking about. You said there were 563 signatures, correct?
Yes,
How many signatures were not valid?
74.
And of the 74 not valid signatures, what was the reason for the not valid? Why were they not valid?
What, the reasons why they were not valid was 2 had address missing, 19 were not qualified as an elector, which would probably mean they're not registered to vote, and 14 jurisdictions, they were signed out of the area, which means they had to be in the city of Dayton proper. We had 3 duplicate signers. That means they have signed before on other petitions. And we had 28 signatures that did not match, and 1 address did not agree, and 7 duplicates where they have signed other petitions. And so that's how we got to the 74.
And obviously, the Board of Elections and the individuals who review these, it's incumbent upon them by the statute to review the signatures for validity for all of those reasons. Are they in county? Was there a duplicate? Did they forget to write an address and all of those? So those are valid reasons to invalidate those signatures. With respect to, you said there were 28 that were, what were they, printed?
28 duplicates.
28 signatures.
20, yeah, 28 signatures that didn't match.
That didn't match. And what was the reason for them not matching?
There were various, if I could interject here, there
Yes.
were various reasons that they didn't match. Either the signature didn't match, the signatures didn't match
Okay.
what we had
On file, all right. And as the board may or may not be aware of the specific statute, section 3501.011 of the Ohio Revised Code, section A indicates that a signature means that person's written cursive style, legal mark written in the person's own hand, and the legal mark of that registered elector shall be considered the mark of that elector as it appears on the elector's voter registration record. When you review the ones that didn't match, were you reviewing them along with the voter registration record you have on file?
Yes, we were.
And are you saying that those did not match?
Yes.
All right. And as a result of that, the Board of Elections is allowed to invalidate those when they do not match.
Thank you. At this time, I will allow Mr. Ezrati to make some remarks. And I want you to know, Mr. Ezrati, that normally we wouldn't do this, that you would have to have a filed hearing. So we are extending you the privilege.
I appreciate it, as this is a public body, although a questionable public body, because this body is appointed by the 2 political parties and not by any elected official in the city. And apparently the Democratic Party's elected officials, the precinct captains, don't have to take attendance at their meetings and believe in holding secret meetings to endorse, which they did over a month and a half ago before all the petitions were in. The purpose of a primary is to let the voters decide who should advance to the general election. This is not an election, this is a primary. And for the members of this board and the run by the parties to decide who gets on and off the ballot is not very American, especially in a nonpartisan election. This is not my first rodeo. I full well know what the requirements are. I've had different standards applied so many times, it's unbelievable. The first 2 times I ran, I turned in 503 and 506 and got on the ballot. Next time I got less than half that. Finally, someone explained to me that I needed to get the voter registration list and go and walk and compare the voter, take the voter registration list, ask for that person by name to have them sign. And even with that, I'm still getting between a 12 and 20% rejection rate. Now, last I checked, in America, graphology is not recognized by the courts. And there's a huge difference between signing on a petition held on a clipboard and signing on a voter registration form that might be signed at a desk. That aside, If you've actually walked in our community and gone door to door and talked to people, you will realize that somebody might have signed that card a long time ago. And since then, they might have had a stroke. They might have changed their handwriting style, or any number of other things. Or they just didn't understand the instructions, because the petition that the city of Dayton says we are to use does not say signature. It says name. There's a difference between name and signature. This form also has parts of it that are absolutely immaterial to the election process. They have ward and precinct, which is not required. Yet they still use the same form over and over and over and reject for all kinds of other issues. Now, I could have had 5 more signatures if I knew I would have had 5 minutes to come in late like Ms. McGlynn did to the Board of Elections. I had the petition, it was dropped off at my office right after I left. Notarized and everything. Unfortunately, notaries don't time and date stamp things. But if you look at the petitions I turned in, they were time and date stamped well after 4 p.m., so they could be invalid for that reason for all I know, because this process changes every time I run. As to the issue of 11 signatures making the difference, that means of the 28 that did not match for various reasons, you are either calling those 28 people liars, or you're calling the people who turned in the petitions liars. I know one address is missing because the man, I asked him to sign his name and print his name, and he printed his name in the slot for address. There was no more room on the line to put his address. So his apartment number was added to the right of it because I was going in sequence in an apartment building. I've had petitions for just rejected for ditto marks, yet the Ohio Secretary of State in his directive in 2012 says ditto marks are legal. I've been through this rodeo, and this is the last time I'm going to allow this to happen. Because, number one, you're supposed to notify me immediately upon turning in insufficient signatures, yet I found out about this through the newspaper last night. And had I been told yesterday how many I was short, I would have gone to the 28 people and got affidavits from them, or at least 11 of them, saying that they marked that paper with the intention of putting me on the ballot as a primary voter, as a candidate for commission for the primary. By taking these 28 signatures and saying they do not match, I would say to you, we have a problem that they had in Miami County. I talked to Mr. Jose Lopez, who used to be on the Board of Elections. He's an attorney. And he says, we err to the side of trying to get people on the ballot, not to disqualify them. I thought that was interesting, but he said recently when somebody was disqualified from having to turn in 25 signatures, which is, by the way, double the requirement for running for Congress, which is only 1/10 of the requirement for running for the Dayton City Commission, because they really don't want people to run. But somebody turned in 25 and had some signatures that were printed, and he was allowed to go out and get affidavits, notarized, and bring them in to verify that that was their intention. So there is precedent for allowing somebody to check or recheck those 28 signatures. Now, why it has to fall upon me when you people are very well paid, and I mean very well paid, to do this, as opposed to putting the burden on me, I'm okay with taking the burden of this. But I'm going to tell you, if we went by the petition that's in the charter, the petition that's charter starts out with 19 for the year. So all the petitions that were turned in were invalid by the charter. We have all kinds of problems with this. That's why a long time ago I decided to redesign a petition into one that could be actually filled out, please pass that out, and accurately filled out, which would include name, signature, address, and date, not ward and precinct. The city of Dayton has been pulling this scam on voters for a long time. Now lastly, if 28 did not match, that's over, my math skills suck. That's over like 7% of the total that I turned in. Do you routinely turn away 7% of the voters when they show up at the polls for their signatures not matching? Because that's the standard you're applying here. I want to know how many voters you turned away from the polls for their signatures not matching. This has got to stop. The people are supposed to decide in primaries, not the parties and not their appointees. And I would like the ability to take those 28 signatures and come back with affidavits from those, at least 11 of those people, to prove that their intention was to put me on the ballot. And I would like to have that granted today with a time limit today, so we can get this over with and stop playing games. Because, as I said, your standards here and the number of failures for the Dayton City Commission petitions is only for one reason. It is that the form is defective, it is not available online, it does not appear in a way that is compliant with the Americans with Disability Act. Every other form for running for office in this state is available online as a ADA compliant PDF, except for this. And I will take this to federal court, I will take it to state court, I will take it to court until the day I die, because I'm tired of this. I did not commit fraud by turning these petitions, my circulators did not commit fraud by circulating these petitions and turning them in, and those voters did not commit fraud, and I'm gonna stop you from committing a travesty by eliminating me from the ballot once again over this deadline. And one other thing, the only reason I entered this race was because my mother died on February 1st. I've been under a lot of stress in the last month. I've had a lot of things I've had to deal with. I asked for help from a lot of people. Some of them came through, some of them did not. But because I had other people circulating petitions and some of them don't know how to give instructions the way somebody who's done this a million times generates the failure, is cutting people out of the participatory process of the American election system. And that is criminal as well. Because if the average person can't circulate a petition that gets valid signatures, and I want a chance to evaluate all of these, and I should have gotten them last night before the Dayton Daily News did, so I could review them too. Because of that, I say you are doing a disservice, and your pledging allegiance to the flag is a mockery of the flag. So, do you have anything to respond, or are you just going to sit and mute like most of the elected officials in this community?
Thank you, Mr. Israedi.
When was the filing deadline?
It was Friday at 4 o'clock.
Okay, and if the petitions were invalid, would there have been time to correct them, being that it was Friday at 4 o'clock?
No, once the deadline's passed, you cannot add another piece of part petition or replace it with another set of petitions after the deadline.
And in this particular situation, Mr. Israedi can request a protest hearing to whatever decision you all finally make in this situation. And there is a long history of case law on this very issue of the allowance of the Board of Elections to invalidate legal marks that do not match what's on the voter registration cards. But there is obviously the ability for a protest hearing to occur.
Again, Miami County accepted the petitions
That's
after an
enough, Mr.
affidavit.
Israedi.
We have a precedent.
I have a question. So what's the procedure that Mr. Israedi would go through for a hearing?
He could then come in and present evidence of those 28 signatures to prove that they are in fact valid signatures. Either bringing the individuals in, providing affidavits to show that they are in fact the individuals who signed the petition.
And would he do that under a protest hearing?
At a hearing,
And he submits a letter?
requesting that.
I will need a list of the 28 people. I would like a copy of all the petitions with the identified ones, the 28 that were identified as did not match, the one that address did not agree, and the 2 that address are missing.
Mr. Israedi, you can follow up with
The Board of Elections with Ms. Kelly.
Ms. Kelly or Mr. Harsh.
I won't be seeing Mr. Harshman, thank you.
Well, procedurally, what happens is you'll submit a letter, and then in the letter, request what you would like. We can give you those copies, and or you can have them.
Actually, the charter says they have to supply me with a copy, return them to me with what the problem is right away.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wait for that right after this meeting.
I
I
will
will,
just make sure that
yes.
you put it in writing.
I will put it in writing.
Everybody knows is on the same page, and a determination of a time frame that you can resubmit or whatever for your hearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved in second. Motion presented by Member Young. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion.
Thank you very much.
All right, may we, is there anything else to come before the board? Director Kelly?
No, there's not.
Okay. Comments from Director Kelly?
I have none.
Comments from Deputy Director Schmidt? Comments from board members?
I'd like to make one comment. Mr. Israedi, the thing I take exception to is the fact that this body does not and will always go overboard to make sure that people are running for public office. And we get the option to give the right to the voter as well. It's always been a priority since I've sat here. I've not been in any partisan discussions with my board members at all, and you know which side of the
Oh, yeah.
fence we are.
I do.
But I will tell you that we go over and above for the same reasons that you challenged us on, for those rights. And it's very important to us. And we
Well-
do not sit in partisan conversation about keeping people off the ballots. I take exception to that.
And I understand
I
that
think
you,
you're out of line when you say that.
and I understand
But
that.
the board
So-
member is speaking.
So
We're
my
going
point
to
is
have a dialogue
that
here.
just please know, and I don't know if Miami County is the best place to reference, but I would say that in all due respect this process. That's all I'm asking you to do. That's all I have to say.
And I was asking for that opportunity, and I got that. Thank you.
Mr. Roddy, thank you. Yes.
Oh, I would just make a motion to include in the minutes that Member Wick was absent from the meeting today, but she did notify the board that she was going to be absent.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second to excuse the absence of, Member Kay Wick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. At this time, I'll have to call upon board members. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, at this time, I'd like to call on the judge. We have 3 more swearing-ins that we need to do. So at this time, we're turning it over to you, Judge.
So we need Colin, Brittany, and is it Francine?
And I just wanted to interject, Colin Campbell just joined our staff yesterday, and we wanted to welcome him officially, so.
All right, if you three will raise your right hand, please. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
will faithfully discharge the duties of the clerk
will faithfully discharge the duties of the clerk
of the Board of Elections
of the Board of Elections
of said county,
of said county,
which is Montgomery County,
which is Montgomery County,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and will preserve and keep
and will preserve and keep
all records, documents, and other property
all records, documents, and other property
pertaining to the conduct of elections placed in my custody.
pertaining to the
Of the elections placed in my custody. So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Anything else come before the board? Any comments from the public? Besides Mr. Esrati, he's already commented throughout the meeting. Now, from the Secretary of State's office? And then with Legal Women Voters? Do you have any comments?
The only thing I had to say is the summer conference is going to be announced here soon, so Director Kelly should be getting you that information as soon as we have it. There was a tentative date scheduled. Did you get it yet, or?
I did not.
Okay, we just got word of it on Friday, so we were hoping to get a confirmation Monday. So as soon as we get that, we'll make sure you all can get it in your calendar for the summer. And like always, if you have any questions
you for being here. The next meeting will be May the 6th, 2019 at 11 a.m. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second to adjourn this board meeting of March the 12th, 2019. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
The petition and then the invalidation of it, but we discussed it, and that was not what the motion was for.
So we must reopen the meeting.
The meeting's just been reopened.
On Tuesday, March 12th, 2019, the Board of Election meeting, amended meeting. May I use that term?
Yes, that's fine, you're reopening the meeting that you just had. and
Okay,
there was a
I'm
motion.
reopening the meeting of Tuesday, March the 12th, 2019, of the Montgomery County Board of Elections. May we have a roll call for this meeting, please?
Chairperson McGlynn,
Here.
Member Hatcher,
Here.
Member Wick, Member Young.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to invalidate, to accept the invalidations of David Esserati's petitions to run for a Dayton City Commission.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second not to accept the petition, the invalid petitions circulated by David Esserati. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second to adjourn the amended meeting of Tuesday, March 12th, 2019 of the Montgomery County Board of Elections.
I cover my ass.
So then,
But I'm telling you
I'm
that if the
just saying,
standard-
if it was
if the
me,
standard
if it
voter-
was me, and I thought that there was a thing against me, I would have did everything I could have to make sure that there was nothing that they could have flagged. And trust me, I went through your petitions personally,
Mm-hmm.
and we made sure that there was no contradictions in anything.
And there's no way of telling when you're getting a signature from somebody and they do something that looks like printing,
No,
that
but-
is not their legal signature. And you ask
And
them
let me-
again and again. Some say yes, some say no.
And then guess what? And you go through their history, and you can see what they did. You can see if they signed, if they printed, if they did nothing. They have a history.
Through their history. That's available to you. That's not available to me. And the idea of me having to check my petitions, let me remind you
No,
that
you check your petitions for accuracy. We check your petitions for thoroughness, for completeness, for the process. There's no change in the process for anyone.
Right.
There is none.
I'm just telling you, it's been allowed by other places to go out and get affidavits, and that has been denied me in the past. I've had signatures disqualified for
But
ditto
that's-
marks.
I'm
The Secretary of State says no.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're telling me on what other
Right.
counties or what everything
Right.
do. My thing with you, man, is if I knew that I had to have it this particular way, I would have made sure everybody knew to get me a signature and a printed
And I
name.
gave them
And a printed
instructions, and I told them that.
Look.
And some failed.
name. Right,
Okay?
right.
But
And
I can't babysit, and when they come in at the last minute, there's nothing I can do.
I understand that, but
Okay.
that's the problem. That's
It's
also
11
the problem.
degrees out Monday and Tuesday
But
before
that's
the
also-
turn-in.
did you-
I was out getting signatures.
but I also know people who went out in November and got signatures. In December,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
and got
wasn't running
December.
that.
But that's the whole thing. If you even have the thought process that I was going to run, get ahead of this. Get ahead of. I'm not. Look,
I'm going
all
to tell
for
you
the
something else.
process.
I
I'm
know
all
somebody's
for the
turned in
process.
over 500 signatures that were gathered in 2 days and got on the ballot. That's impossible.
I'm going to tell you.
I'm going to tell you that there have been there have been different standards applied to different people.
Okay. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But like I said, I would have just CYA'd myself and made sure that everything was was thorough.
When you run for office, I'll be glad to sign your petition and help you out.
Can I help you?
Give me a piece of paper
Okay.
so I can write my written request. I'm
Okay.
sorry I didn't bring a
Do
pen.
the word, please. All right, there's this.
Thank you.
And wait, here's the pen.
I got a pen.
Okay.
Thank you.